All right, welcome everybody. This is Community Murals Sacramento. Tonight, we are really excited for our artist talk with Gregory Shilling. Gregory did a mural in District 7 at the Common Ground Church. And we're all really thrilled to hear not only about Gregory's work at Common Ground, but also his work that kind of led up to that. You know, Gregory is an artist originally from Davis, California, right around the corner, so a local guy. But he is currently living in Sacramento. He studied at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. He also studied at Santa Reparta International School of Art in Florence, Italy, and at the University of California, Santa Cruz. I mean, he focuses mainly on human anatomy, figurative work, but with shared urban spaces. He works both in oil and in mural paint. I'm really pleased to be able to present Gregory to you tonight. He undertook a project where he worked with a number of community participants that are both part of Common Ground Church, but also were part of the larger, or certainly part of the larger community there. Which is quite a diverse group. So we're looking forward to hearing about Gregory's work there and just his work as an artist in general. Couple kind of housekeeping things. This is a recorded artist talk for Community Murals Sacramento, so it will be on our website, communitymuralssacramento.org. And I don't even think I've announced myself yet. I am Donald Gensler, the public art manager for the City of Sacramento's Art and Public Places program. So Community Murals Sacramento is a citywide program. And during this talk, we just ask that you keep your questions till the end so that Gregory can do his presentation, and we'll reserve about 15 minutes or so at the end for some questions and just informal dialogue. Anyway, with no further delay, I really am honored and pleased to present Gregory Shilling.
All right. Hey, everybody. Thanks for being here. I'm super excited to show you guys some of my work. I'm going to kind of like do a quick artist bio and then a overview of the work that kind of brought me to the point in my style and the things I'm thinking about right now. And then go through some of the other murals that I've worked on, and then kind of get in detail about the District 7 Arroyo Vista / Valley High mural at Common Ground Church. Thank you so much, Donald, for the introduction. I am going to start sharing my screen. So I appreciate you guys' patience as I try to get all this stuff working. All right, cool. Are you guys seeing this?
Yep.
Awesome. And is there like this bar on the side with all of our faces, or is it just full screen?
It's full screen.
It's full screen, and it's recording in a couple different ways. So don't worry about that, Gregory.
Cool.
You're good. You got the full screen. It's perfect.
Okay, thanks so much. So I'm Gregory Shilling. I'm a 26-year-old painter, muralist, sculptor, and graphic designer. And I was the lead artist on the District 7 mural for the Sacramento community murals. So I was born and raised in Davis, like Donald said. Went to Cal Poly and then studied abroad for a semester, and then ended up at UC Santa Cruz between the ocean and the redwoods. Had a wonderful time there, finishing up my bachelor's degree in fine arts. So usually I'm oil painting or doing murals, but I'm also like dabble a little bit in sculpture, tattooing, printmaking, and graphic design is where one of the ways that I pay the bills. Y'all artists know how it is. Anyway, I'm currently the art director at a brewery called Sudwork. It's in Davis, kind of handling all their graphic design needs, doing murals and stuff with them. And then I'm also pushing my murals around Northern California and trying to show in galleries here in Sacramento. So I'm going to kind of take you back in time. These are some pieces that kind of represent the style I was working with around like 2016 or so, doing the gestural figure painting stuff, trying to play with like motion, light and shadow, etc. I was a hippie kid, just, I don't know, kind of going to music festivals and doing hippie kid shit. And so I was making art like this. It was like kind of trippy. But that kind of figural stuff that I was learning to do kind of translated into stuff that I felt like was a little bit more accurate as far as how I was feeling. A lot of it became kind of self-expressive. This stuff was from around like 2018, 2019. I had a good couple of years of the old depression, and was painting a lot of like figures that we're talking a lot about how it feels to be in a human body, how to have the sunken shoulders, the achy bones, and kind of like wrapping up into yourself. So I was working with the human form, but using mostly imagination, not really photo references, and doing some like kind of impressionist, like abstract-y stuff. This kind of also translated into this, I guess, a little bit more realistic, but still very on the illustrative side. I was doing some of these images of figures, just kind of focusing on wrinkles and bones and anatomy, and trying to see how much I could express with the human form while also creating this sort of this composition. At the time, I was getting into a lot of street art and graffiti and stuff. That's kind of a big portion of the muralist kind of stuff that I've done. Lots of stuff that I can't show here, but this was taken in London of this big ugly figure that I did there. A lot of this stuff is not necessarily the kind of thing you can find clients for. So I was just trying to, I was focusing on like the ugly zits and all kind of like aspect of art for a little while. Eventually I landed at UC Santa Cruz and had access to a full print studio, which was just a miracle. I fell in love with copper and etching for a little while. I was also incorporating little bits of collage into there. I don't have time to go into all the collage stuff that I do, but I spend a lot of time just like cutting up comic books and magazines that I find from friends or at the local dump. I find that it's like a really good way to add words to a piece of art without like writing them, because then it kind of comes from some other source rather than from the artists themselves. It kind of like rings a little bit of found poetry. So that's a whole another aspect of my art. It's on my website and stuff. But and then this over here on the right is a big piece I did for a intaglio, like printmaking, copper etching, final big kind of starving body, the dead head, lamenting a bird that it's killed. It's called Regret. I think I was going through a breakup or something. I don't know. Anyway, that wandering around Santa Cruz a lot, I kind of started to really fall in love with the nighttime environment, all the noise and overhearing things here and there, conversations. That kind of led to this this series of cityscapes that are a little bit in the style of maybe a children's book illustration, kind of cartoony. I'm definitely inspired by comic books and stuff, in that everyone's got little speech bubbles. I was kind of exploring all the noise and chaos of a town, exploring modes of authority with all the police coming down off the hill, people committing crimes, people guarding their houses with guns. I was also proud of myself for being a little bit meta. There's some people on the kind of right-hand side observing this very painting in a gallery, critiquing it, calling it I think, sorry, I forget what it says there. Derivative, I think was the word that I used. Anyway, this kind of like led to this next painting, which is still marks one of the most amounts of time I've ever spent on a piece in my life. It's an oil painting, and it's about 60 inches long. So when I was a kid, I spent a lot of time, I'm sure a lot of you guys have, just poring over like Where's Waldo and I Spy books, etc. And I was really into finding every little detail and getting to know a whole page. And so I wanted, this is obviously the result. I just wanted to like make as much chaos and noise onto a piece as I could. Sketched this thing out and then filled it all in over the course of, I think, 3 months. It's kind of a celebration of like the way that humans live on top of each other, and then also a critique. I don't really have time to go into all the like little details and stuff, but there's car crashes, there's always police. Here's a little pig sticking his gun out the window of his cop car. There's always raccoons, kind of these staples of life if you're wandering around that time of night. This time of day, like after sunset, when the sky's still a little bit blue and the lights turn on and everyone's still out, started to influence my art a lot. And so you can kind of see that come across in my paintings. It's a good opportunity to like show all the life that's going on inside buildings with the yellow windows. And that will kind of come up more and more in my art. So once this one was done, I moved on to this piece, which is called The Last Tree in Town. It's a depiction of a redwood tree in its final hours with a tree sitter boldly sitting atop it, bravely cooking a pot of soup as the authority figures move in to try to cut it down. I was raised by a kind of hippie activist dad, and he had a lot of stories about anti-logging action, earth verse stuff. And so some of my work is kind of inspired by that. Some environmental themes. You can see the Lorax peeking out of one of those windows. Julia Butterfly Hill actually saw this painting and told me it was poignant, which was one of the best moments of my life. I don't know if you guys know who she is, but she sat in the tree for a really long time and was helped save redwoods back in the day. So while I was thinking about this kind of like crowding urban spaces, I was also starting to build sculptures. This one on the left was ended up with a paint job, but I don't have the picture of it now. But there were little speakers in the, some of those little houses, and they were kind of giving off ambient noise, pre-recorded conversations, and just kind of giving a sense of life. On the right, we've got the beginnings of this piece, which was kind of a more developed version where I was playing with people living densely. It was a little Mad Maxy, kind of like build your own house out of scrap wood, which is what I was doing. And if you look close, there's also a lot of collage in this piece. I've got a lot of cutout text, like spread the good news at the top. And I was kind of like poking fun at the hyper-masculine, like gun culture in some of these things. It's hard to read here, but there's like bodybuilding advertisements and like just oversaturated kind of like ads for different products, kind of talking about capitalism and etc., as we all are in one way or another. So my figural work was starting to become a little bit of this kind of like impressionist gestural. I think I might have skipped a slide actually. Is there? Okay, there we go. So here's some oil paintings that I was doing all the while I was in college. The one on the left is of my uncle. He's always working on cars, always grimacing at an engine with his hand on his hip. So I managed to snap a picture on my iPhone while he was doing just that. And and then I painted him. And then the picture on the right is my friend Ella. Just kind of like pushing the realistic stuff, but still with like thick brush strokes. But eventually this kind of pursuit of realism gave way to this more emotional, impressionist kind of thick brushstroke, quicker style of painting. I was just kind of making things up from my head. I'd spent a lot of time painting and drawing people realistically. And so from the things that I had learned about light sources and stuff, I was kind of applying to make-believe situations and trying to, I was finding that I was hoping that I could get more emotion out of something if I was just inventing it from my head than working from a photograph. So here's some of the figural work that I've, that's, I don't know, looking a little more recent. That kind of collided with my love of nature. This was a big piece I did on commission. And those are sandhill cranes, which are a wonderful big species of bird that you can find about 10 miles south of Sac, I think in like the late winter. And they come by the hundreds and just will hang out for their breeding season and then take off. But this kind of line-based colorful landscape is referencing a little bit or inspired by an artist called Sainer. He's one of those European like graffiti writers turned fine artists. There's a little bit of ARYZ or Arise referenced in here. And there's an artist named Rob Downing that I'm really inspired by. And so I was kind of doing this like, I don't know, those are just some of the artists that I'm like looking at, thinking about when I'm making these pieces, but mostly it's just a celebration of nature and creating kind of an impossible situation, giving the viewer someone to relate to. Here's another one in the same vein. This is kind of the style that I ended up using a little bit for the mural that we're going to end up talking about in District 7. This is called Tomorrow. It's a painting of obviously a person leaving a little gated garden and the animals that will turn up if you let your garden overgrow, little butterflies and scrub jays. Obviously a Central Valley landscape. And the honeybees around the head are a reference to a book called Jitterbug Perfume by Tom Robbins. I don't know if anyone's read it, but I'm working a little bit with like some symbolism with the staff looking like a human heart and stuff. So that, oh, sorry, I'm having a little bit of a glitch. Do you guys see a new painting or is it just still this painting with like a couple pixels missing?
It's taken a little while to come through, but it's going to be there. It just maybe it's a larger file.
It is. Dang. Oh, it's going through pixel by pixel. It's all right, guys, welcome back to 1998. Here we've got my slowly loading photo. You guys all see that? Probably. All right. Anyway, so that figural work is kind of ended up here. I'm working on these kind of like crowded scenes. This is a piece that I finished recently. I spend a good amount of time in situations like this, loud, crowded, smoky, colorfully lit, like bar scenes. Or at least I was before COVID. Things have calmed down since. But anyway, I wanted to like try to create something with a lot of chaos, a lot of noise, and kind of overload the senses with these expressions on these people's faces. So that's kind of some of the recent work. All along, I've been also working for this brewery called Sudwork. This is just a little mural I did for them. But anyway, our relationship started with some simple mural work, and in the years since, I've been developing labels for them. All of these, I'm going to share a couple of my favorites. These are some labels that get printed on 16-ounce cans and distributed all over Northern California and like Nevada and I think parts of LA. So doing some stuff with people in it, doing some stuff with animals in it. This is an ode to the California or the Pacific two-spot octopus, which is a local native. And here's a label I did with my puppy named Poppy in the middle. I wanted to do a label with her on it because she was so darn adorable. She's grown up since, but I was doing stuff like this basically for the brewery for the past like 4 years. Got another big file coming in. Sorry about this, you guys. I don't really know why it's going slow. My internet should be good. But okay. Come on. Anyway, this is kind of the side of my art that's a little bit more about marketing, a little bit more corporate. It's not that I like doing it. You can make rent doing it, but it's a little bit less the stuff that I feel like comes from my soul, a little bit more of the stuff that like just looks colorful for the sake of selling beer to people. And so I've been, I don't know, that's one of the things that I think about a lot is like how to balance that sort of for work art and the for passion art, and kind of avoiding getting burnt out on the art that you do, the graphic design that you do for work, so that you can still like make the art that you want to make at home. Anyway, I'm just kind of stalling because, oh, there we go. So this is a collage or composite of all the, not all, a good amount of the labels that I've done for Subwork. I think we've done like 70 or so in total. Can't really go into detail about those, but it's been a lot of fun doing mostly like colorful cartoony stuff. And then I eventually painted their rooftop with this big mural, classic California bear made out of hops, their logo, and then like this reoccurring kind of cityscape with the windows. Here's a picture with me in it for scale. Like John was saying, I made the mistake of painting this in the dead of summer, and the heat really like to reflect off this white rooftop and get trapped in that angle right between the wall and the roof. And so I was pretty close to heat stroke a couple of times, but it was a fun 2 weeks. Here's another mural that I completed in Davis. It's on 4th Street. I don't know if anyone's ever been to Davis. This is near the G Street Theater. And there's a picture of me on the train tracks for size reference. I've always been a big fan of birds, been birding since I was a kid. So here's a couple of local favorites. We got from the bottom to the top, the Buick's Wren, which is a very loud, tiny bird with a lot of personality. And we've got the ever stoic gray blue heron, the tree swallow on that little frond of reeds, and then in the background the red-shouldered hawk peppered in with honeybees. So here's another mural from last year. They wanted something that kind of represented Davis, student life, etc. So I went with this big character running with us, a bunch of sunflowers that they'd maybe stolen or maybe had bought, who knows. And so this is kind of from start to finish, the sketching portion, myself on the scissor lift, and the final product had to happen in a week because that's how long the scissor lift rental, or that's how long they could afford. So it was a very, very fast mural. This was my submission last year for Wide Open Walls. Hopefully some of you guys have seen this. It's on Del Paso Boulevard, 1830 Del Paso Boulevard. So you kind of see some of the stuff I've been talking about coming in here. I wanted to get back a little bit to that kind of abstracted human form, highlighting points of points of the nervous system that can cause pain or feel things really strongly, like the fingertips, the ears, the nose, the lips, the heart, the toes. Thinking a lot about anatomy here and color palettes, definitely inspired by that kind of nighttime color palette with the warm colors coming from light sources. This is a large figure kind of representing humanity coming up out of the city, metaphorically, to snatch a little police helicopter out of the air and kind of remind it who's watching who. And I just wanted to do something a little bit about authority and about surveillance, because if you lived in Sacramento in 2020, 2021, you definitely know what it's like to have helicopters going over your house all the time. And so I kind of wanted to do a piece a little bit about surveillance and that power play. So this brings us to the District 7 Arroyo Vista / Valley High mural at Common Ground Church. Common Ground is a really cool church, very diverse, very focused on connecting with people of all different backgrounds. One of my assistants, Taylor, observed that it was the most diverse church she's ever been at, which was I don't know, high praise. It was an absolute pleasure working with them. And fortunately, when you're working with a church, you have the built-in kind of enthusiastic group of people that are willing to participate in something like a big mural program. So here we've got a image of the first meeting that we had. I don't have pictures of our trip out into the garden, but we took everybody out into the garden. They've got this big sprawling garden between the two murals that you'll see eventually. And we all picked different leaves from all the different plants and we brought them inside. And our kind of like warm-up activity, or to get everyone involved, was to do plant rubbings, which I'm sure you guys have done. And then we used all of our rubbings of the leaves. Okay, there we go, to create this this big tree that involved everyone's participation. So this theme of like everyone doing a little bit to create this greater whole was a big part of our journey with Common Ground Church. And so everyone participated using their leaves, and then also kind of wrote some of the things that they really appreciated about the community on those leaves. We got a lot of references to the diversity, the togetherness, the ability of the resiliency of the neighborhood, and the connection between neighbors were really important aspects. And then this is our second meeting. Give me 1 second. So we did this little icebreaker activity, which was super fun, where everyone drew portraits of each other without looking at the paper. It's where you're like just across the table from someone, making eye contact, and you're both drawing a kind of contour portrait of the other person without being allowed to look at it. And we did it kind of like speed dating style. So there was this rotating group of people going around the table. And it was a really effective icebreaker because the portraits always turn out super ugly. And I don't know, it's really hilarious. Anyway, once that was done, and people had kind of gotten to know each other, we did little presentations about what we appreciated about the Valley High area, and what issues were important to each group. So Common Ground Church does a lot of work to feed food insecure people. They are feeding like 1,000 people a weekend. They've got a great infrastructure in place to bring in food. And then also some of the food is coming from their garden on site. And so bringing people together and making sure that everyone has what they need was really important to this church. Reaching out to people of all different backgrounds. Diversity was really important. We had some mentions of people felt really strongly about the well-being of our environment, and basically just kind of like spreading positivity, spreading helpfulness like throughout a community, and being able to keep ourselves afloat. This was during COVID, so obviously people had a lot of feelings about needing to lean on other people, etc. So eventually we created this design, which I'm going to pull up on a different screen here. Let's see. share, and then. Are you guys seeing this screen that says Community Mural Paint Day?
We see a screen that is showing one of the sections of the mural. It's not
Okay.
not Community Mural Paint Day necessarily.
I'm going to switch this up real quick and we'll get there. Just going to pull this up like this. Sorry about
that. Says Community Mural Paint Day, Gregory.
Cool. Right on. So this is the design we came up with. It's very, very long. So the mural was about 140, 150 feet long. This was just kind of the digital rendering that I did. It involves a lot of insects, a lot of nature, and then agriculture. We've got someone planting a plant. It grows up with the help of a lot of bees and pollinators into a squash plant, eventually gets harvested. Also with the help of pollinators. I just like big insects. And transported. A lot of these patterns that you can see in the background are traditional Mien fabric patterns. There's a big Mien culture presence at the church and historically in the area. And then the squash ends up at this farmer's market and gets shared amongst the community members. So that is the mural that we, okay, sorry, here we go. This is the one I want. Awesome. That's the mural that we designed. You can see it hung up on the right-hand side of this image here. And then we ended up putting the outline on the wall using the grid method, a classic, and then planning this paint day in which we would do a paint by numbers style mural. Just going to share this other video. Here's us doing the using the grid to make a proportionally sized outline of the mural that would eventually be filled with color. Basically just providing the outline for the paint by numbers mural day. Big, huge, gigantic thanks. Which I will repeat to Eileen Neuer and Taylor Pinnell, my assistants, who were kicked butt all the time and helped me execute this mural that was super gigantic. So that is just a simple video of us. And eventually we had the paint day, which went off pretty well. I think we were the first paint day of the whole CMS group. So we had probably about 200 people come out throughout the day. It was like a 4-hour ordeal. And by the end of it, the entire wall was filled with color. I was absolutely blown away. I'd never done anything at this scale before, so I had no idea how it was going to go. But at the end of the day, there was no white space left to paint in. So extremely grateful for everyone who came out. And it was one of the coolest days of my life, watching my design come to life with a bunch of people participating. And so here's some photos, Taylor on the left, of folks coloring in the mural by number. And then, so eventually, we finished the mural, took a lot of detailing. Essentially, once we had those colors blocked in, that was only a good 30% of the mural. There's a lot more details that we had to handle. As you guys probably know, having done paint days yourselves, like a lot of areas get kind of like sparsely filled in. You don't really have solid colors in a lot of places. So spent a lot of time just kind of filling things in, making things look perfect, and then adding some stuff on the sides. But this is a photo of one of the sides. This is on the south end of the property. And this mural measures about 60 feet long, about 6 feet tall. while we were painting this, there was this really loud, big dog that lived on the other side of this wall. And it was really like aggressive and defensive of its territory. And so every time we were painting, this giant dog would run from across the yard and jump up the wall. And you could like see its ears poking up over the wall as you were painting. And it would kind of shake the wall a little bit. So it's fun. I think by the end of it, it kind of got used to us. So I like to think that we were on our way to befriending it. There we go. So very hard to photograph all in one picture because it's such a long mural, but I've got a video to show you guys of this mural. Just it's going to be like me walking along, but basically this is kind of what it looks like from afar. Common Ground has this giant lawn with a garden off to the left, which is between the two murals. And so it gave us a good opportunity to create this really long mural and not have to use scaffolding or a lift or anything. So I'm just gonna share this. So this is the first mural that I showed you guys on the, like I said, the south end. We've got classic Sacramento kind of suburban landscape, bright colors, and a group of people enjoying food, sharing food. So this was one side, and then the other is here. Let me rewind to the beginning. Common Ground, they wanted that facing the road so that it could be visible. So like I said, this Mien fabric design that you see like around the dragonfly in the bushes is a reference to one of the cultures that's a big influence at the church property. There's kind of two churches or congregations that use the same church facilities, and the Mien people have this long history of working the land and worshiping in the church at this property. And they have got some of the most stunning like tapestries and wardrobes. The traditional fabric garb is really, really incredible. So I wanted to incorporate that. We've got the references to the Central Valley agriculture culture. And then this is growing up into those Mien fabric designs again. This is the mural once it's been finished with all the details. We've got honeycombs throughout. And so you just saw some folks crossing a river. The Mien pastor, Ricky, and I talked a lot about the symbology of a lot of people at the church being immigrants, and that involving a water crossing at some point. And so the idea of not only the food being transported across the water, but it being kind of a metaphor for populations being transported to a place where they have a sense of community as being really important. Here we have just like your usual Sacramento neighborhood, and everyone sharing the food, and the Sacramento cityscape in the background, and the bees eventually flying away after their work is done. And there's the city transit going by, the view of the mural. So this is just a kind of like detailed shot. You can see work I was doing with the figures and then also with the nature. And they really wanted something very bright and colorful. So that was one of our main goals. So here is myself and Taylor and Eileen saying thank you so much for participating in the mural. If you were there on the paint day, and also for watching this artist talk. We had a ton of fun out there. It was mostly beautiful days, and we just are really grateful for the opportunity. So thanks so much. I am doing a shameless little plug here. My work is going to be at at the Atrium Gallery, which is in Old Sacramento, through the rest of May and then the whole month of June. We've got a little art opening, little gallery opening from 6 to 8 p.m. In Old Sacramento this Friday. If you guys want to drop in, it'd be awesome to see you in person. So thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it. And thank you, Donald, for the opportunity. Thank you to Emily and Katie for handling so much of the stuff behind the scenes and making this all possible. Another thank you to Eileen and Taylor, and at the church, Pastor Troy and Bobby were very, very helpful, made sure that I had everything that I needed, and made sure that those events went off without a hitch. So I'm really, really grateful for everyone else as well. Thanks, guys.
Awesome. Thank you, Gregory. If you want to, take off the screen share. No, that was terrific. I want to leave a little bit of time here for us to just talk a little bit, ask some questions. I certainly have a couple questions that I could ask as well, but want to give folks a chance first. If there's any other any questions that folks would like to pose, I can take a look at the chat, or you can just go ahead and turn your screen on.
Thanks so much for the compliments in the chat, you guys. I really appreciate it. Making me smile.
So Gregory, one of the things that I noticed is that, while you showed like a range of work that you had completed, since college or even during college, it seemed to me that this piece very much reflected, some of the, although, you had mentioned the community was really interested in it being colorful, it did really reflect some of the imagery and sensibilities of your work. And maybe you could talk a little bit to how you came to this design through the community process, but I think still really kept your artist voice central to what this design is and what the ultimate mural looks like.
Yeah, it definitely, I was able to make it translate into my style for sure. I think that I kind of like made a PG version of what's usually PG-13 or R in my artwork, like to put things simply, but that makes sense. It's a church after all, it's public. And I kind of, I went into it, I'm not a church going person. And so I was kind of like, oh, wow, this is interesting. I'm going to be painting a big mural at a church. And it ended up being so gratifying. It was all about the community. It was never once awkward. It was this kind of an amazing back and forth. And so it seemed like they were equally concerned about the environment, really appreciated the idea of communities coming together. And so a lot of my work was about communities being together. Previously in my work, it was kind of more about together, whether they like it or not. But this mural was kind of more about celebrating the togetherness and the way that we can bring each other up. And then of course, I will take any excuse to paint scenes of nature. So it was great that that they wanted that sort of agricultural aspect. The site is on this beautiful, beautiful piece of property with this big lawn and this gorgeous garden. So it was very, very easy to walk out there and just get inspired just by being there and turning around and then painting the wall with some of the stuff that I saw.
Absolutely. Awesome. Thank you. Liv, do you have a question?
Yeah. So Gregory, obviously your work is incredible, huge inspiration to me. And I guess my number one question for you is, a lot of your work, especially some of your earlier paintings and your murals, are super intricate and detailed and have like a bazillion figures and complicated structures and stuff. And so I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about your process. Like, do you at references, or do you just do 1,000 bajillion sketches, or just like a little bit about how you start those works when they're so intricate, and like what programs maybe you use?
Thanks for the question, Liv. I appreciate it. So for the really complex cityscapes, which I think is probably what you're talking about, I kind of was taking a lot of the lessons that I'd learned from drawing things from life. I spent a lot of time in high school and early college kind of just replicating photographs and stuff. And then was learning lessons the whole time about how light falls on things and how shadows are cast. And then tried to use all those lessons to create big worldscapes. The reason that they're so big and complicated is because I get bored painting really fast. And so I found that if I could make a situation for myself where every day I was kind of painting something different, because there's so many different things going on throughout the painting, that I could actually make something big. And so that was kind of one of the main reasons. I was kind of sick of spending so much time refining the smallest details of a large like figure painting or something, and realized that I could kind of entertain myself, for lack of a better word, with these really complicated scenes where I was painting something different all the time. And then also, like I said, I'm kind of a small detail oriented person. I like to look at kind of the things that other people don't notice. And so I wanted to kind of create something that I would have wanted to look at as a viewer. So that's where kind of the complex stuff came from.
So Gregory, you showed us your invite to your opening coming up this week, actually, right? Friday,
Yeah.
20th, and down in Old Sacramento. And so how did this like assemblage sculptural work come out? Was this something new? I know you showed some images of that with the speakers and everything, and I couldn't quite tell whether that was something that you were working on before, or is this something that you've revisited, or something kind of new for you to be exploring?
So I took a sculpture class and ended up in a wood shop, and there was a ton of scrap wood, and I was just messing around building little tiny houses one day, and then that just sort of evolved. It felt like it fell in line with a lot of the other stuff that I was doing, in that it is kind of about densely populated places, and it's I don't want to be corny, but I think that there's this kind of cathartic satisfaction that comes from home building, in the same way that kids make clubhouses and like create little nests in every nook that they can in the house. I was definitely one of those kids that made a lot of clubhouses. So there's just like this divine satisfaction that comes from making a little domicile. I was also one of those kids that made a lot of those little fairy houses out of sticks outside. So there's this kind of satisfaction that comes from it. So I was just pursuing my bliss in that. And so yeah, that sculpture will be displayed through June in the atrium. But I just finally got a wood shop set up in my garage. So it's the first time in a long time that I've been able to, I rent. So it's hard to find a place where I've got a garage big enough and facilities to set up all my saws. But there's going to be more of that work coming soon.
Awesome. I don't see any other questions. I'm going to ask one more question about your work at Sudwork and your labels, which I was like kind of blown away by that huge file of labels, which is pretty darn impressive, and some pretty good beer too, actually, at Sudwork. Yeah, and so. Where's that going? Are you excited to continue to do labels? And I know you talked about kind of balancing that graphic design work, but honestly, I see your sensibilities in that work too. You know, even in the puppies and all that stuff. Like, it's some of your kind of style and voice comes through in that. And so talk a little bit about, you know, I know you're balancing it, but talk a little bit about what it's like to be a working artist and find that space where you really have a client that you feel so connected to.
Yeah, I'm really grateful for them. And I feel really lucky that I had done like a kind of bad mural at a hair salon, but the owner was really needed a mural done. So I got like kind of the phone number connection through that a lot of years ago. And then it's kind of grown ever since. At this point, I'm kind of doing like 15 to 20 hours a week for them. I think finding something stable is extremely valuable. It's the reason that I've stuck to it for so long. And it is kind of like it feels like it's for fun. Like they're the notes that I always get is more colorful, more contrast. Like this needs to pop off the shelves. So the sensibilities that I kind of turn to sometimes with the more subtleties, that doesn't get picked up. They like the stuff that's kind of bright and in your face. So it's definitely a relationship between me and my client rather than just kind of like me expressing myself. But by now I kind of know what they want. And it is a cool way to get my art distributed around and into these like circles of people that are interested. It's really cool to be appreciated and to represent. I mean, they won like gold at the Great American Beer Fest a couple of times, so they're one of the best microbreweries in California and in the United States. And so to be the person that's like wrapping it in a pretty picture it feels good.
Absolutely.
It's definitely one of those things where sometimes I want to wallow in my sadness or my angst or my anger at home with a paintbrush, but I've got all these deadlines. And when you kind of wring that art sponge dry, sometimes it doesn't really matter what kind of art it is. Even if it's just like cartoons, you're still kind of like using up that energy that you need to have left over to bring home to do your studio work. And so it's kind of it's one of those things that I'm learning to create a symbiosis between the passionate stuff that is me cutting open my bleeding heart and pouring it onto the canvas, and then versus the stuff that's just kind of supposed to look pretty so that millennials will buy beer.
That's a final word, Gregory. Nice. Well done. Thank you for being here. Thanks for presenting. Thanks for your awesome work in District 7. And we're looking forward to seeing more. Everybody go see Gregory's show this Friday in Old Sacramento at the Atrium. And again, we'll have another artist talk next week. John Osgood, Wednesday at 5:30. It's going to be presenting his work and talking a little bit about his project on Folsom Boulevard. So stay tuned, everybody. We look forward to you joining us again. Again, Gregory, thank you. Terrific work.
Thank you.
And thanks, everybody. Looking forward to seeing more and more art in Sacramento.
Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it a lot. This has been really fun. I was really nervous, but thanks for listening.
You did great, Gregory. Have a good night, everybody.
All right, bye-bye.